I really feel like whether the children you're working with are at school or pathfinders or adventurers, I believe that's their job. And so as I work with them, I'm just constantly thinking if they're doing something, if they have some behavior issue that wouldn't work well for them down the road, that's where I want to try to step in and help them. I don't believe that character issues go away as children get older. Now, sometimes society pressures will kind of encourage them to tuck it under the surface a little, but I really don't believe that people just mature out of character issues. So again, that's a little bit where I come from with dealing with kids. For me, these words, and again, my next talk is about discipline. Respect and discipline, they're both a two-way street, and those two words just keep coming up as I try to make what I do more efficient. I try to do my job better. The words respect and discipline just keep coming up. So here for respect, I just feel like it is so fundamental. I don't think it is something that polite people show to their unworthy neighbors. I really think respect is genuinely shown as we get to know what a person's actually going through. Disrespect, I believe, is an act of ignorance. I think as we understand that, it really changes the genuineness of our respect. When I feel disrespect towards you, if I can recognize that it's out of ignorance that I feel that way, and if I'll just get to know you better, my respect will go high. It helps to fix my disrespect if I come at it, I think, from that truer understanding. So if my child that I'm working with does something that I feel, okay, I don't respect him as much because he did that, I try to snap out of it by saying, I don't think I understand his world maybe enough yet if I'm having these thoughts. And it really helps the way I interact with children and with parents. So I feel like our children are doing the best they can. Everyone is doing the best they can to live a happy life. They might be doing it wrong. They might be doing a bunch of things that hurt others in their way of trying to achieve happiness. They might be doing 1,000 things to make people hate them, but we must overcome all of this and look for ways to lead them to a better path. Respect forces us to get inside the world of those we work with. Again, I've got a handout in the back that you'll want I think somebody else may have come in without getting one. So. I didn't get a slide here, but I've got an analogy, an example. When a child throws a fit because his favorite crayon is missing, wake up and realize this is the world that he's in. You probably are angry at your neighbor for letting his dog destroy your flowers. This means nothing to your child. Get inside each other's world and actually try to solve problems together. Jerry Seinfeld has this, his analogy is, that you're at the zoo and you see a little kid whose balloon has just gone up in the sky, and the little kid's just, my balloon. And the parents are like, it's just a balloon, but it's my balloon. We can get you another one. I want that one. And to understand that, think if your wallet or purse suddenly started floating up in the sky. Your kids would be like, it's just a purse, Mom. But it's my purse. We can get you another one. I want that one. When we're not in each other's world, we just don't get it, right? And you're not helping anything. That counseling that you're giving your child actually isn't helping them. I believe that when I make respect just way up there on my list of things to accomplish, I can truly treat children, particularly my difficult children, as the reason for the program, not they're in the way of my program. If I'm not in that mode, then I'm like only appreciating the good kids and the cooperative parents. The ministry kind of begins when I start dealing with a difficult child or a difficult parent, and thinking of them as the reason for my program, not they're in the way, and if they just get out of the way, then I'd have a program. But respect requires health. Just like any good tree has a whole lot going on underneath the ground that you can't see, I can't respect you if I am unhealthy on the inside. If I am drained emotionally, if I'm not right with God or haven't spent time with God in a while, if I'm tired, if I haven't been exercising like I should, I don't have the reserves to deal with you. And I don't have the reserves to deal with your child. And so if I may know all this stuff that I just said, there's a big but. If I'm not healthy enough, it just doesn't matter. I just don't have it. I'm going to tell you some stories now that have taught me a lot about respect. Some people that I've run into growing up, and then some things that have happened to me as an adult. My elementary principal, Mr. Bates, and I grew up in Washington. If I could have made it to his funeral, he's probably the number one person. I don't know if you've ever had someone pass that you really wanted to honor them and their relatives. That's probably the number one man for me right there, number one person that has died in my life that I would have liked to have been there. I was able to kind of thank him before he passed, well before he passed, but amazing person. Even as a child, I realized this guy is something special. He, it was a large elementary school, not a small one like what I teach at, but it seemed like this guy did everything. He led all the choirs, the bands. If a bus broke down, he was there fixing it. I got him toward the tail end of his career, and so he was probably a little bit grumpier than he was at the beginning. But I remember one thing that stood out in my mind. We had discovered stink bombs, which were these glass little vials. And I had a supply, and my friend had a supply of them, and we would look for opportune times to use them. And I had them lined up in my what is supposed to hold your pencils, a little groove in your desk, and I had them lined up there. And we were on our way to shop class, and my friend he tagged me, and I was trying to get him back, and I rounded the corner and I bumped my desk, and one fell out, and we were like, whoa. And we just kept on going, just get out of here. And I kind of actually forgotten about it. And then the principal, he looked in our class and was like looking at me and said, "You come here." And I walked outside, and the entire class that had not gone to shop was lined up like they weren't able to stay in the classroom where the stink bomb had broken. And he was, had this real stern look on his face until he smelled he had the stink bomb on a piece of paper until he smelled it himself, and I could see him trying to fight this smile like, that's pretty funny, And I thought, an old guy like that actually thinks, that was kind of funny. And I remember as a kid, I thought, he's gotten in my world. Just a small example. A little later on, my parents started having real trouble with my sister, very rebellious. And I overheard a conversation he was having with them. And he's saying, there's these stages in life of a child. In the early stages, they're kind of in copycat mode. God has put them in this mode of, I want to be like mom, I want to be like dad, I love my teacher. And he's done that so hopefully they will develop these godly habits because they want to please. But copycat mode isn't the end. God wants us to be completely free. And so as we start getting into maybe 5th grade, no matter how you've raised your child, they start to question. And this is God-given. God wants us to think for ourselves. This is the only way you can explain why Lucifer ever sinned. He had everything going for him. He wasn't tempted by anybody. But God gives us this complete and utter freedom to say, is this the way I want to do things? And just hearing me explain that to my parents and saying, value that questioning time in your child. Teach them how to do it respectfully, but don't shut up those questions that they have, because this is God-given, that they will be totally, totally free. And if they choose God, they've totally chosen it themselves. Just thought, wow, as a kid, I just had never heard it explained that way. Just really respected the way he treated me, the way he thought about children. I'd never thought about, I was kind of aware enough that my antics were, I was, a jerk. That's who a parent or a teacher should have described me. He had a different way of looking at it. My mom grew up in Sweden, and back then you would go to school from Monday, which is when the calendar begins over there, through Saturday. 6 days a week you'd go to school. And so she would have to make up a day of school every week. And she wanted to go be a nurse, and she knew she probably couldn't do that in college, making up a day of work every week. And so she moved over to the United States and started life over here. So my grandparents on my mom's side, we called him Morfar, which means mother's father. We didn't get to see him very much. About every 2 years, we'd go there every 4 years, and they'd come over about every 4 years. So about every 2 years, I get to see them. All I really knew about him is that he was funny, and he was a hard worker, and he'd always liked to swim. He hated shopping, and his wife, my grandma, would always go shopping, and there's lakes everywhere in Sweden, and so he'd always have a towel and a swimming trunks in his trunk. And he had some buddies that he'd go swimming every single day. And even when it meant digging a hole in the ice, which often it meant digging a hole in the ice, they've got these little saunas nearby. And so you hop in and you jump in the sauna. So every day of the year for like 30 years, he'd go swimming. And so these are the little things I knew about my grandfather. But my sophomore year, he passed away, and I was at his funeral. And not so true anymore, but back then, the older segment of the population in Sweden, their English was very limited. But the younger group, they knew English so well that you couldn't hardly practice your Swedish when you went over there. I remember this old lady coming up to me, and she kind of figured out who I was, and she said, "You're a Martin too, aren't you?" I'd been named after my grandfather. I said, "Yeah," and she said, "If you can live your life like that, Martin, your life will be worthwhile." And for the first time, I started thinking, I have been named after somebody, and just kind of got my wheels spinning as like I'm also a Christian, I'm also representing God, and this really got my world kind of turning, and I was baptized about a year later, and I think those comments got my wheels thinking, just the life of a man that somebody else knew better than I did. So I'm at Walla Walla College. My dad's an engineer. I'm thinking that's what I want to do, and God's hitting me over the head saying, "No, elementary teacher. I'm thinking, what? No, nobody on any side of my family, as far as you can go, that I know of, is a teacher. And so I go to be a student missionary, where I want to see if that's really for me. I signed up to teach 6th grade. No one signs up for 8th grade. But something fell through, and I got 8th grade. And these guys were so annoying to me. They picked up everything bad of America and thought that's how we all live. They all dressed like that. All the guys looked like that. And, the signs, you couldn't take pictures without them giving these gang signs and stuff. And they thought it was cool to have a temper. They thought that was cool. So they'd get mad all the time. And in particular among this group was this guy, Bangus. This isn't an actual picture of him, but pretty close, the closest thing I could find. This guy's probably a little older, but I remember, let me turn here so I don't miss some things. I remember a change starting to happen first in me when I decided to pray about this situation. The change first started in me. As God challenged me to pray. And then I started noticing some small changes with Bangus. First, it was his haircut. But the annoying temper was still there. And it came to a head one day when he walked by. He was the one sitting. Someone walked by and knocked his hat off. Oh my, what a horrible thing it was an accident. The guy just walked by and his hat went on the ground. And he stood up, and his friend turned around, and they were just all in it. And you have to understand, I was dealing with something like this at least 3 times a week. And we're in the upstairs. There's a 2-story thing. We're by the road. We often deal with rocks flying in our window from these, we'd call them crazy, the first name of a drunk or a guy messed up on. This island is like if you released all the people from a mental institution, if you just released them, because there was no mental institution. And so Crazy Roy, Crazy Tony, their first name was Crazy, you know, because they were crazy. And well, my kids would pick on them. And so they knew where my classroom was, and when they come by, they start throwing rocks at us. And so another thing that was annoying, because I knew it would go away if these kids would just knock it off. So these things I'm just dealing with. So I'm frustrated. I've had it. By this time, this hat incident comes up, and I'm just ticked off. And I said, you know, I told him, go to the principal's office, and he said no. And I said, I can carry you like a baby, or we can go to the principal's office like grown-ups, you know. And so I start walking. He starts following me, and halfway down the stairs, I hear God telling me, think. And I don't know if you've felt that before. I don't know. It's like God's, you know, it wasn't your thought. I didn't hear a voice, but he just says, think. And I just turn around and I say, Bangus, this is all about a stupid hat. Let's just shake hands and go back up there. What do you say? And I hold my hand out, and probably the best handshake I've ever had. Never get emotional. My wife hardly has seen me cry when I talk about kids. Sometimes I get a little bit going, but best handshake I've ever had. And that was the beginning of a real turnaround in Bangus. His grades started improving. This is probably halfway through the third quarter, and by the time last quarter of the fourth quarter came up, it's straight A's. As I leave the island, I'm thinking, but I bet this doesn't last. But 4 years later, he's senior class president. He'd gotten baptized. And as I head into teaching, where I won't often get to see something like this on the outside, God gave me a picture of the power of a little respect and what it can do. I got to see a life change just with a little respect, and it was just a little bit. I switched to Southern. Southern had a reputation of being a really great place to do education, a great education program. And I start working after school care. I don't know if any of you guys are familiar with after school care. Okay. And please, nothing against, so as I'm talking, it's nothing against anything that's going on. As I'm working there, I'm like, this is the rudest group of people, kids, that I have ever worked with. And I'm just blown away, and I'm not understanding it. And as I work there a few weeks in, I start to develop what I think is the reason. Christian kids getting told about a loving God, and yet their parents are picking them up in time to go shower and go to bed. And they're pulling up in nice cars, and I'm getting this picture that these aren't single moms having 2 and 3 jobs, trying to make ends meet, and that's why they need to be at after school care. Please, I'm not trying to offend anybody, but what I'm seeing is kids being brought into this world, and their parents don't have time for them. They've got a nice house, a nice car, and that's what they've chosen instead of time. And then they tell them about a loving God, and then this is their life. You know, it's not their fault that they were born. Think about that. And sometimes they're treated like you're in the way. And if I was brought into the world and treated like nobody has time for me and I'm in the way, there's this loving God that we believe in, I would be ticked off. And so I'm starting to understand, and so you see my respect now going up, because I started with zero respect for this new group of kids that I don't understand. In particular was this one girl. Just the worst. Worst attitude. The only thing kind got this stupid way of swinging kids where if they want to be a motorcycle and I'm goofing with them. That's the only thing that she sort of was civil towards me about. Everything else, I had no relationship whatsoever. I just gotten my mountain bike stolen a few months before and had saved up and was able to, I just gotten a new one, and I rode it to work that day, and I had it parked in the hall between the classrooms, and we're doing our thing, and my coworker motions me into the hallway, and she's like, look at your bike. She's like, I saw this girl take a key and just scratch it all up, and I'm just like, but even stronger than that time when I heard God say, think, I really heard it this time, those words, Martin, don't fail. And I knew exactly what God meant. So I didn't know what I was going to do. And I knew exactly what God meant. And so I went back in there, and I could see that she saw that what I had seen. And so all I did was say, hey, you want to go swing? And so my only thing that I can do with you, And so we had a great evening together, just about 30 minutes before a ride came. That is a pretty accurate picture, probably 7th grade. And so, and that is all I knew. That is all I knew, was that I had not failed. I had treated her with respect, and I had the story of Bangus so that I didn't need to know what happened. I knew that all I'd done with Bangus was a little handshake, right? A little bit of praying, a little handshake, and all I did with her. See, what I was starting to see with this girl is that I could tell in her mind, she's like, all I have to do is do something bad enough. You look at me like you care, you treat me like I'm special, but I know better. It's like a lot of people had failed her in life, and all she needed to do was hit the right button, and I think that she had hit the right button with me. Without God's help, she really had hit the right button, and if God hadn't spoke to me, I would have been yet another person that would have shown her, you're right. Nobody really does love you. All you have to do is push the right buttons, and you'll find out that you're right. And so that one little thing was hopefully telling her, no, people do care. Someone does care ultimately. God does care. Guys, we are missionaries. When you read that text, do not lay up for yourselves treasures on earth, but lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven. I've kind of wondered, what does that really mean? It's these young people that will choose God because they found out that ultimately there is love on this sinful planet. There are people that care. Therefore, maybe God really does care, because my parents who have been telling me about God, they don't care. I've tested them, they've failed. I know they don't care, so I'm not really sure the God they talk about cares. We are most definitely missionaries. It's not glamorous, but it is very true that we are missionaries. We are laying up treasure in heaven by these people who will be there because we didn't fail. Okay, some miscellaneous thoughts on respect. I said, respect drives every great team effort. We all want respect. Bad kids will be tempted to be good kids if respected. Avoid that irritated tone. You will get frustrated, you'll get tired, and I believe kids understand this. But sometimes it's more than they can handle. Sometimes they have unfriendly homes. Sometimes they're treated as if they're in the way. We don't want to add to this. Respect means caring enough to be clear. I find that most kids want to be good and that they feel disrespected when they're punished before they were understanding an expectation of yours. Follow your own rules. You are above the law, but if you want to show respect, think about that. It's a two-way street. I do believe it's a two-way street. So I've talked a whole lot about what I've learned about respecting them, but I don't think it's healthy if you don't demand it in return. I tell my students, I said, you're not allowed to disrespect me, and it's not a personal thing. And I think it works best if we don't treat it like a personal thing. They're doing their job, and if they disrespect you, you as their guide cannot let that happen, because then they're going to disrespect other bosses. It's your job to and just kind of move yourself out of the way. You were the one disrespected. Just stand aside, and I can't, because I love you, I can't allow you to disrespect your leader like that. Tell my kids, I'm not allowed to find out or see you at Walmart on a Saturday night disrespecting your mom. You're going to be in trouble with me on Monday morning if that happens. Let's see where I am with my slide. Yeah, okay. You must respect yourself and others. I teach my children you can show every emotion. I'm not about hiding their anger or stifling their jealousy or whatever it is, but, and I learned this from my wife, don't be ugly. There was a big change for me when I got married, because now I couldn't wait for to be in a good mood to go on a date, and if I wasn't having a good day, I just not hang out with my girlfriend that day. When I'm married, it's like she's always there, and I realized through my wife that I can be fully human, and she'll even let me take walks and stuff so I can clear my head, but if I can just not be ugly, I can be upset, I can be mad, I can be frustrated, I can be totally ticked off without being ugly. It's the ugliness that is hard. It's harder to apologize for, and it's hurtful towards other people. So this is what I see parents, the reason why I say this is I see parents stifle all of that in their child, like, put a smile on your face, wipe, get a smile, like, come on. It's okay for them to be human. And so, just my little rant there. Another one. They need to obey the first time. If they obey the third time, they were disobeying the first two times, and what are you going to do about it? If they don't obey till 10, they were ignoring you on 1 through 9. Just something. I realized that maybe it takes them 10 seconds and you want to count as this. If I was going to make you guys line up, it would take a little bit, and there's nothing wrong with, I'm not trying to say there's nothing that is wrong to count. I'm talking about, you're wanting them to stop touching, little kids, stop touching your computer, and you're like, 1. You told them to stop touching your computer. If they understood you, when does it need to happen? And what are you teaching them? Is their boss going to be like, 1? So just when they understand, I don't think they need all those warnings that we sometimes give. And again, because what they're doing right now is their job. I had an adventure worship about a month ago, and I was telling them to do your best, and I said, what do you want to be when you grow up? And when kids think about what they want to be, they want to be a good one, whatever it is. No one wants to be an average doctor, an average mechanic. You're imagining this amazing version of whatever it is you want to be. Nobody ever wants to be anything but a good one. And teach them that I am going to demand that of you, because that's who you want anyway. And I fully believe that. I'm like, this world has enough mechanics, but it needs more good ones. There's enough doctors, but we need more that care. There are enough teachers, but not enough who still truly want to help. We have enough pastors, but not enough who still remember their mission. Let's respect our children enough to demand that they be what they're created to be, a good one. And this is my favorite quote from Abe Lincoln: whatever you are, be a good one. So that is my talk. I guess I gave you plenty of time to get to the next one, but if you have any questions, I guess we have a question and answer time. And again, if you didn't get a handout, I think there's some maybe that didn't get a handout. There's the one in the back.
What did you find that young lady that you were talking about that was like 7th and 8th grade?
Yeah.
What did you find that she liked? What did you find you could find in common with her?
How did I find it, or what?
What?
It was just, so we would do different things, and during recess, the recess portion, she never wanted to play tag. She didn't want to do anything in the group. But as I would swing, and there was all ages, and it was the little ones especially that when I'm doing an underdog, it's the little ones that are like, I want to be a motorcycle, and so I'll be like, brrr, And she was in 7th grade and loved that. So I just stumbled into this, like I thought I'd try. I just tried it out, and she loved it. So I just stumbled across so then that was something I could do every day that like she didn't hate me for. And so when this came up, I thought, remember, you can't respect if you're not healthy. Please remember that. You cannot respect if you're not healthy. Yeah.
Excuse me. So you mean if you're not healthy spiritually or physically?
Many. It's all of that. Like now, I will say spiritually is probably the most important. I've seen God carry me when I'm like running on fumes. But truly, when you're working with people, you need to exercise. Like when I was biking to and from work, I had this hill. Tennessee's full of hills, and I've got this hill that no matter what I'm frustrated with before I start climbing that hill, I am too tired at the top. I am no longer frustrated with whatever. Have something like that physical workout that flushes your system. But spend time with God, and I tell my kids this, you are beginning, young people, you are beginning to have things come into your life that you can't fix. And this is only going to become more and more true. If I don't have time with God to truly unload the things in my life that I can't fix, then I'm carrying them around. If anybody has used a wheelbarrow and you've worked with cement and you didn't clean it at the end, it's still kind of caked, and then you can use it again. But if you don't clean it again the second time, it's more and more cement, and it's heavier and it's less able, and that's who you are. If you haven't really given God all of your problems, and this takes time, I can't do it in the 10 minutes that I had, and I'll just tell you, in the 10 minutes that I had with God this morning, that's not enough. And I've got to, very soon, I've got to have half an hour, 45 minutes minimum with God, or I'm going to start being that wheelbarrow more and more caked with cement as I try to respect you, as I try to respect my kids. These parents will, without thinking, they'll throw a verbal punch at you. They'll treat you like you haven't worked with kids for 5 seconds. If you're not healthy, you can't take that punch. But that's where you're a missionary, and that's when your program begins. Remember, they're not in the way of your program. And if you understood their world, more and more I get parents, they come to me, and they seem ticked off at me. And the more we start talking, the more I realize I'm the straw on the camel's back of their day. They're not actually upset with me. So if I can just be nice to them, be warm with them, and empathizing with whatever is causing them to treat me like this, it starts to open up. And so none of these rude people are in the way of your program. They're the reason for your program. So, yeah.
And that carries over in all areas, but just something I've been learning, and working with people, and in your own. We had a company merge where our company bought another company, and So we've merged 2 companies and,
Yeah.
you know, you're new people and they're not excited that their routine is getting mixed up and now so just giving people the benefit of doubt and that they might be having a bad, like as a parent, I mean, all the different things that you go through and by the time you finally get to, I mean, it was a lot, whether it's getting to Sabbath school on time or getting to adventures on time. When you have little ones, it can be really exhausting.
Yeah.
And a lot of times the way you talk or they talk comes across and just giving each other the benefit of the doubt and not that you're, you know, how whatever you're doing like made their horrible day. Like, no, like, and then being the solution to it versus the adding to the day. It's just, yeah, and you use that in all aspects.
Yep.
The great thing about adventures for me, what I love so much about it, is that we actually are working with families.
Yeah.
We're not working with just the little
Yeah.
ones.
Yeah.
We're not working with just the parents. We're working with both. But that also is a very challenging thing. And I didn't catch every single bit of your program, but when I was listening to your program, you have a combination of things here. First, we're switching to respect, or we're kind of doing the latter part of the respect, talking about little children. We need as parents to demand respect, that our children, you know, are respectful. We can do that when they're little. But when you're working with between humans, between adults, and even older children like that girl who was 7 and 8, you can't demand respect. You have to earn that respect. You have to, you know, and for you, for instance, the way that you earned the respect of that girl, you didn't react with that, with what she did. You didn't get mad. You didn't do what she thought you would do. And so it's such a neat thing with adventures, because we do have to make sure that the little ones, you know, as parents and as directors and leaders, we have to make sure they are respectful. But we also have to realize that when we're dealing with our parents, when we're dealing with our staff, we have to earn the respect.
Right. Right. Oh, yeah. Take your question.
Well, my question is, I understand what you're saying, but because we're dealing with parents, I can think of one particular adventure that I have. She disrespects her mother,
Yeah.
and her mother allows it. So how can I come and get that respect from her when she is constantly doing that to her own mother? So that's a very hard situation. How would you deal with something like that?
Well, and I think what I hear you saying, if I'm correct, is, and this, the hardest thing for me is like the mother's there. Because I mean, when I'm teaching, the challenge of teaching is that I have kids who aren't brought up the same as I would bring up mine, but the parents aren't there. So my job is easier. Also, I give them push-ups and laps and stuff, and I don't know that Sabbath school and adventures. So I start and end with prayer is the beginning and the end of all this. Like with the Bangus, if you remember, long before the handshake was me praying, and actually change was starting to happen just with prayer. And so I am modeling it, but man, nothing makes me feel less powerful than being a teacher, because when the parents come into the equation, like, it's like I just can't rule and tell you exactly what to do. So start with, see where prayer takes you first, rather than me trying to tell you. I think that's what I want to tell you.
Based on what you're saying, though, not though, but in accordance with what he's saying, is I know exactly what you mean. The challenge with us, again, and it's a joy and a challenge, but the challenge with us with adventures is it is our job, at least our church sets up, that you cannot drop off your children. Parents must be there, so you get at least one or two. And the challenge with what you're saying is you don't know what that parent's thoughts and reactions are going to be. Your first reaction is, hey, I want to make sure this child is respecting our mother, or I want to make sure this child is respecting me. And if we stand up and say, discipline that child, mother might get mad at you. So it is very tough to really know what is the best thing to do. So what he's saying, and adding to that, what I loved about what he's saying is, first of all, the prayer. Second of all, you said the best thing, and that is, if we do not spend that time, If we do not get our time with God in the morning, we don't know how to direct stuff like that. We don't know how to deflect the punches that we're going to get. We don't know how to handle that little girl because her mother's not doing nothing, and it's frustrating. So
Right.
what you said there is amazing.
Discipline is my next talk, and we have to have a plan, and I'll talk about the parents need to understand my expectations for them. So I'll get into that.
I have this boy, he's 8 years old, and he's on time. He's always the first one to be in the class, in the adventure class. And he already starts pushing my button, the first one. So by the time the others come in, I'm already exhausted. And then I call the mother to come and at least stay with me and see exactly what happens.
Yeah.
The mother will say, well, she always goes to the adult Sabbath school, and she never wants to come in there because she knows the boy.
Yeah.
And when he gets out of the class, she goes and beat the boy really good. And then his brother is in Pathfinder. I went to sit there one day as a parent because my daughter is in there to see how does she behave. She's very quiet at church, but you never know whether she's quiet in front of me or in front of the teacher. So I went to sit in the class as a parent, and then the brother of that boy who is back pushing my button is also bothering the teacher there.
Yeah.
So whenever I invite the mother, she doesn't want to come.
Yeah.
Because she knows how the children are. And of course, they don't have a father, he's a single parent. At times, he even throws a chair at the other kids, and one time he threatened to throw it at me. And because I was angry already, I didn't want to show him that I'm angry, but what I said, okay, go ahead and throw it at me.
Yeah.
Go ahead. And
Wow.
he just grabbed it, he just held it and looked at me.
Yeah.
Like that. But he was really ready
Yeah.
to throw it to the others. They even pushed on one side.
Wow.
So I told the rest, don't be afraid. Let's just pray about
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
We prayed. I told everybody, pray how you know to do it. We prayed and prayed and prayed until one time he calmed down. But the next Sabbath, it was the same.
Same thing.
At times I give up. I just want to give up.
Well, realize whenever we are frustrated, every single person in your shoes would be too. With God, just be a little better. Just be a little better. Sometimes when I'm running and I want to quit, I'll put the fingers on my hands and I'll think I want to quit right now, so that's one. And I don't give myself one until I've gone through that wall and I no longer want to quit anymore. And the next time I want to quit, that's two, and I won't quit till I get to 5. I've done that with kids. I'm not going to lose my, and I'm over it though, and then it comes up. I won't let myself. I tell myself I get to blow up after I've used all 5 fingers. Something real quick about little kids. The difference in reality that can make your job a little bit easier. I seriously think in my head that my dad would wrestle with me every Saturday night. But as I grow up and I'm thinking how often I wrestle with my kids, and I'm wondering, and I asked my dad, and we rarely wrestled on Saturday night. Why do you think I still in my mind think that we wrestled every Saturday night? Why? I enjoyed it so much. So when another story, my wife, in her in her brain, she thinks her pastor came to every recess. And she now is like, no, there's no way. But why did she think her pastor came to every recess? It was so much fun. So the cool thing about working with little kids is you find out what they love, and you do it once a month, and they will think, man, that person, they would always. So think about that, because that's one thing I've learned about little ones. Yeah.
In response to Agnes there with the little child who he gets there first, I have a son who he is very challenging, and that's because he gets bored real easily. So what I've realized with him, he likes to do puzzles, so that's the way his mind works. So he used to always give trouble in his class, even at regular school. You know, he could not stay still. He would just pinch somebody or take away their pen, and he would just laugh, because it's funny to him. But I realized that if he's busy, he doesn't have time to give trouble. So because he comes first, what you could do is make him your helper. And if you make him, you know, they say the devil finds work for idle hands.
Yeah.
So keep him busy, and you may see a difference with him.
Makes him
And I
feel
did
important,
see-
too.
Yes, yeah.
Okay. Got a question here?
He will feel it.
Another thing with that, I'm a teacher too.
Okay.
And I've had, from kindergarten through 8th, and I did some first graders, I had some that were, again, a lot of difficult boys.
Yeah.
And they were bored again, that's a great advice, keep them busy. But one of the things I did too, if you have parents that, it might be single, they might not be able to come and they want to come to adventures, but if you can make them partners with you,
Yeah.
and pray with you. If you can get them on the same page with you and talk to them alone without their child there and just say, hey, I want to help you. Because a lot of parents, they're probably just as frustrated as you are.
They are.
They don't want to come because they're tired and they've been dealing with that child all week and they want to break. So telling them, hey, I'm on your side. Let's see what we can do to help your child
Yeah.
goes a whole lot more than say, hey, why aren't you here on an adventure?
Right.
Pray with them and let them be partners with you, and that can go a really long way. It can change the parent's heart as well. So I found that a lot of times they're just tired.
Right.
They're really tired.
And they're also hurting, and hurting causes blindness. I have 2 children in my school. One of them came in obviously autistic, and they knew it. And their little brother came in obviously autistic, only not according to the parents. It was obvious, but this kid had never been tested, and just 2 weeks ago, the mom broke down and it's like, it was so painful to consider that my second child might also be, that there was this denial that she actually didn't see it. And we have to appreciate that our weaknesses, when we start to see our weaknesses in our child, it might be so painful that we don't see it. And here comes this teacher like stabbing us because they can see it, and they think the parents aren't dumb, but it's blindness. It's because of pain.
I had a student that I had, I felt like I was calling out more to refocus and stuff like that in class while I was an instructor. And a real blessing and breakthrough is when just communicating, talking with the parent, like, these are some things I noticed, how do you, and learn, with having the conversation, learn that, yes, he, has a hearing thing and like just paying attention. And that parent was like, please continue to bring them back in.
Yeah.
Because, you don't want to be that instructor that's, hey, like over here. Obviously that's, I didn't do it like that, but you know what I mean.
Right.
But I'm trying to redirect, and to be able to have the parent, like be able to, having that conversation, getting to know the kid's background, getting to know where they're at, and was so helpful for when I was doing crowd control and instructing and stuff, and having the parents back up and not feeling guilty for having to be calling out the one kid, but knowing that there was a tool that I needed to use specifically and work differently with the one child versus my other kids.
Cool.
And in a kind way, but still drawing them back into the group and maybe giving them more specific instruction, like, instead of them being bored and finding other things to do, being more specific with that one child. So just having the conversation. The biggest thing is when we don't communicate, we make assumptions. That doesn't end up well. So just communicating and being open and of course, Christ-like way, having those conversations that might, at first, you might feel uncomfortable addressing, but just, the praying about it and finding an opportunity to do that.